I mean, when I would say when Michael and I started writing, there weren't a lot of Newfoundland writers you could point to as influences. I mean, they weren't there. I mean, writing as an option, like to grow up in Newfoundland and before 1970, and to think writing was a sensible way to live your life, or even an option. You had to have some gumption. And so there were only a handful of people that I had ever encountered who had published books. And those books, I would say, influenced me more as just make me think it was possible to come from this place and to have that as an ambition, more than influencing me as a writer, I would say.
I was in my early 20s, and I started traveling around the world, you know, traveling to Greece and places. A friend of mine said, "Oh, you're going to Egypt? If you're going to Egypt, bring this rock with you and throw it into Cheops' tomb." And I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "It's a piece of labradorite." He said, "I just want to confuse the archaeologists." But I was in a youth hostel in Crete, and when you're traveling like that, you bring a book with you, and then when you finish your book, you leave it someplace and you pick up another book, and you continue on like that through the youth hostels. And I was looking for a new book. I just finished Nikos Kazantzakis' book, and I saw this book called House of Hate, and it was a new Canadian library series. So I picked it up, and it was like the first line is something like, "Hate is the child of fear, and Saul Stone was afraid of one thing or another his entire life." And it went on from there, and I realized, you know, by page 3 that it was a novel set in Corner Brook, Newfoundland, where I'd grown up, but in the 50s. And nobody had ever mentioned this book. Nobody ever talked about Percy Janes. And so here I was on another island in Crete, reading this Newfoundland author for the first time. And then when I went to university, I met John Steffler, and a poet, and I'd been reading his poems and realized that he was living in Corner Brook while I grew up there, and I didn't know it. So there was this kind of idea that there was some writers there writing, but I certainly didn't know they existed. Nobody told me about them, and I think this generation has a much better sense of, you know, what Canada's writing. It's a terrific thing to realize that, you know, writers are alive and living in your neighborhood.